Hi, Roy here, and welcome to another edition of The Right Has Left. I am your host, Roy Garden, and even though some of you out there may say it's been kind of a slow news week, other than what's going on with Iran, that's not the case, because here at The Right Has Left, we always dig into the news that most of the mainstream media, for one reason or another, may not cover or choose not to cover. So having said that, let's go ahead and get right in it, because, I really think that a lot of this news is important to you. So let's go ahead and get into it. So let's start with Donald Trump. We always like to start with Donald Trump, don't we? So Trump decides that he's going to wait 2 weeks for the diplomacy before considering a strike at Iran's nuclear uranium enrichment facility that they are trying to get going. And a day after that, he has signaled that he was not interested in negotiations with Iran anymore. Trump has reversed his stance to say that there is still time to get some negotiations possibly going. That was the excuse for leaving the G7 summit early, because he said he had some things to work on that. Now, Trump does face several challenges. United States involvement in the conflict can result in heavy damage to its assets and soldiers. There is a risk of a wider war breaking out with other players jumping in. And, of course, Trump's Magna base is still unconvinced that the United States should get drawn into another foreign war. Now, many are saying that, again, Trump is, again, talking. Now, if you remember that phrase, talking, his decision, or Trump always chickens out. That's basically what it stands for. Trump is always chickening out. That's the acronym TACO. Trump also is, again, talking like Canada is going to make a trade deal with the United States. You think so? Well, I don't know. He feels that, they still want to become the 51st state. And I don't know if that's true or not, because I can tell you right now that the Canadian citizens, as well as the Prime Minister, is saying, I call BS on that one. But, and they've also, Canada has raised the tariffs back on the United States. So I don't think they're really too excited about becoming the 51st state. As they are raising tariffs, and Trump is beginning to go ahead and get things in rows for more negotiations, if he thinks that's really going to happen. What's going on in other news? Department of Homeland Security Kristi Noem visited a biological hazard lab the other day before she was rushed to the hospital over allergic reaction, so that she says. And she was in there and talking to her security personnel and said she's going to be just fine. There's nothing, of course, to suggest that there is any link between the lab visit as well as the reaction that she had. But, the media did get pictures of her visiting very in depth this lab, as you can see by some of these pictures that we have received here, that along with Kennedy looking around at different things, and that's maybe how she got this allergic reaction. But again, there is no proven connection, so I want to be transparent there. Now, media did contact DHS via email outside the normal office hours for comment, and they didn't have anything to say other than the fact that she was taken by ambulance to a Washington, D.C. area hospital this past week, and she seems to be recovering. So that is good news. What else is going on in the world today? Well, sadly, U.S. Representative LaMonica Rivera, a Democrat from New Jersey, has been indicted by a federal grand jury on 3 counts. The charges stem from an incident at the Delaney Hall Federal Immigration Facility in Newark. Many of you saw that on the national news, where she allegedly interfered with federal officers during the arrest of a Newark mayor, Ras Bakra, on this past May 9th. The U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey announced the indictment, stating that McLiver forcibly impeded and interfered with federal officers. Now, she has stated she will plead not guilty, claiming the charges are all politically motivated, and that the incident occurred during a visit by members of Congress to the immigration detention facilities, which was part of a oversight function. Now, according to the indictment, McLiver is accused of assaulting, resisting, impeding, and interfering with federal officers. Specifically, it's alleged she pushed past an officer while using her forearms to strike him and also grabbed an officer who was trying to make an arrest. McLiver's attorney, Paul Fishman, has stated that the legal process will reveal that the charges are all political retaliation. He expressed confidence in her exoneration. Now, a statement from the Justice Department said the decision by the grand jury was the next step in the process. The case is being handled by interim U.S. Attorney Alina Habba. Now, we all know who Alina Habba is now, don't we? Yeah, she's that lady that used to be with Trump, and she was not doing too well as his attorney when he needed her, but he did appreciate her work and did appoint her to his administration, and she was basically Trump's counselor to the president, if you may remember that. So that's interesting news there, and the fact of the matter is that Alina, and a lot of folks have kind of made fun of her, because of some of the things she never got through with when he was being charged with a lot of charges. We all must remember Trump still has 34 felony counts against him, and he is a convicted felon. That's just the facts, folks, and he is that. So now, if you remember this past week, Trump did leave the G7 conference, and he said that he had to go because he had extremely important business. But as he left, he did actually make a stop on his South White House lawn. And for what reason? For this. His two magnificent large flagpoles. So he left the G7 conference, said he had important business, but he did find stop to have a press conference and stop on the South Lawn. And he did this fairly early, as soon as he landed, to discuss some of the things with the Iran issue. But he did find time to talk to the media about his construction projects at the White House. Now, the first are these two gigantic flagpoles. And you can see by the photograph, they are huge. Trump loves flagpoles. As he says, are the best poles anywhere in the country. They were installed on the south lawn of the White House. He engaged the National Park Service, who was responsible for the greens on the south lawn, to tear up the lawn and make room and get some cement going and put in these two flagpoles. Now, while President Trump weighs the single most consequential decision of his time in office so far, and that is the U.S. intervention with doing the things with Iran and Israel, getting involved with that. He's also completing a personal project years in the making, and that is these flagpoles. This past Wednesday, he oversaw the installation of two of those flagpoles. That's why he left the G7 summit early, because he had important business. You know, it's no secret, folks. Trump does not like the G7. He doesn't like it. He never wanted to participate with it. He tolerates it, and he thinks there should be maybe a G9 and get the Chinese involved and have them on that as well. That's a fact. He was quoted as saying that. So he'd find any excuse to get out of the G7 if he possibly could, so he did. So on these flagpoles, one is on the south side of the building, the other is on the north side of the building. These are the best poles anywhere in the country or in the world, he said, as Trump told the reporters. They were assembled for the construction. And he says, putting one of them is a very exciting project to me, he said. That he is taking on such major White House building projects in his second term after coming under fire for trying to do them in his first term, where he got shot down. I don't mean that. That's a pun, folks, just a pun. He was not allowed to do those projects. Now he is allowed to do those. So, he's just, now he's got all this power. He is just on a rage to do what he wants, and he's going to do it. And these two flagpoles are just the beginning of the things that he wants to do with the White House. He wants to build a ballroom. He wants to put up a gold leaf mural with his image on it. Where have we seen those before around the world? So, yeah, those are just some of the things that he wants to do. So he said that he was the hunted in his first term. Now he is the hunter. So his exact words. There's a big difference, he said. So he spent an hour inspecting and commenting on the flagpole's installation, other than, besides what's going on around the world with Israel and Iran. And while he refused to directly answer reporters who were shouting questions at him about these flagpoles, he still was on the fence about whether or not he's going to do a strike on those uranium holdings in Iran. So as we heard reported earlier, he's going to wait 2 weeks. So he went on and on and on about these flagpoles. And, his daughter Ivanka was there, and his son-in-law Jared was there, and they also had the swearing in for Charles Kushner, another Trump family member, as ambassador to France. And he saluted that big, large American flag that we saw there. Now, while all this was going on, he did say that he paid like $50,000 of his own money for these flagpoles because they got special internal materials in them, so they'll hold up the high winds and everything. And he said these poles will never rot out. So it gives you the flexibility, he said. So he loves construction, and he loves to brag about all that. So the sad thing about these flagpoles, folks, is the fact of the matter is they had to tear up the White House lawn to put them in. The other thing there is Marine One. The Marines are now nervous where to land Marine One, and it usually lands on the South Lawn for security purposes for the president. It has landed there for decades, as you can see by these images here. Marine One is essential to get the president from the White House to Air Force One at Andrews Air Force Base safely. And now they're not sure whether or not they can still land it at the South Lawn because of the rotors and those large flags. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Now, the National Park Service oversees the White House lawns, and they had to dig it up, and that's at a taxpayer's expense there, folks. And so they could pour the cement and get the grounding for those flagpoles. And again, we'll have to see how well they can handle with getting the Marine One in there. Trump also went on to talk about the Russia-Ukraine war and that it was stupid. It should have never happened. If he's president, it never would have happened. And he got everybody, the construction workers back there, to agree with him. Another dumb thing that, I'm sorry, it was a dumb thing that he said. He looked back at those construction workers and he said, "Do you have any illegal immigrants working for you back there?" And he goes, "Oh, I hope not." And of course, they're all, no, we don't. I mean, the guy loves to grandstand when he's got the press in front of him. And it's just unbelievable. He's tried to put a pole in West Palm Beach here in Florida one time on his own property, and he never got permission to do it. And so he tried to sue the city of West Palm Beach for $10 million to put his pole in, and he then increased the demand to $25 million. The town then began fining Donald Trump $1,250 a day and on January 6, 2007 for code violations because he put the damn pole up anyway. He says, "I'm the president, I'll do whatever I want." And then as the fines increased, he finally backed down and lowered the flagpole. So it's interesting what he does with these things. All right, and other news that's going on with the Trump administration. As you watch this video, the Trump organization announced a new smartphone. I kid you not. And again, the press didn't do a lot of play on this, but it's interesting to see the stuff on this smartphone. Of course, Trump says it's going to be made in the USA. Experts say that is next to impossible, even though he claims he wants to make it in the USA. When they announced this new phone, the T1, Trump One, a gold-colored device, which is said is going to retail around $499, $500. Just call it $500. The smartphone will run Google's Android operating system, and the Trump organization said the phone will be built in the United States, as I just mentioned, but most experts say that's impossible. The We just don't have the technology for that. Probably designed and made in China. And if the Chinese want to move their team to the United States to make it, then maybe Trump can technically say it was made in the USA, even though it is all Chinese components. There's no way the phone can be designed from scratch and it's going to be assembled in the U.S. or completely manufactured in the U.S. Spokesman Francisco Geronimo, who is vice president of International Data Corporation, told the media on this past Tuesday. This is completely impossible, Geronimo said, suggesting that the phone could be produced by Chinese original device manufacturer, or ODM, as they like to call it, a type of company that designs and manufactures products based on the specifications of another firm. Despite being advertised as an American-made phone, it is probably and more than likely will be built and made in China. So anyway, as you saw that video about this phone, they are just so excited about this phone. And it's just another gimmick that Trump and his family are going to make money on. If you want to spend $500 for a Trump phone with Android system and think it's going to work any better than your Samsung or your Apple devices, you go for it. I am not holding my breath on that one. Now, protests sprung up across the country on New King's protest as they rippled peacefully across dozens of cities in the United States. And this protest, as you know, kind of rained on Trump's parade, even though he had real rain on his parade just a little bit. Again, the media, for whatever reason, the day after the No King protests were done, hardly any network had the gonads to actually talking about the protest or how it affected Trump's parade. They're scared to death. That's why. Is because Trump has been, for lack of a better word, sicking his FCC people on CBS and CNN and NBC if they don't fall in line and just do nothing but report positive news on whatever he does. So that's why they were just slightly, a little scared. So as these protests sprung up across the area, they were peaceful, and these protesters were in a lot of cities. And the estimates for these protests were around, my light just went out. Sorry about that. Were around 5 million people across the U.S. protested for the No Kings protest. So that's a pretty good record. As for Trump, I'm going to stay on this camera because since the light went out on the other one, as much as I possibly can. Now, Trump's organization said they had 250,000 people at his parade, which is BS. Every news organization that was there, and most of them were, said there might have been maybe 20,000, but 250,000, no. And as you're watching this video of the protest that we had here in Indian River County, we had a lot of people show up at ours for the No Kings protest too. This was extremely large for Indian, where I live here in Indian River County. It's not a big town, so that was a pretty good turnout for those protests that they had here. Now, according to spokesman Eunice Ortez, those protests was pretty good. Now, here's what's going on though that is kind of sad, and I want to really give this guy some credit. Is this gentleman here? This is an 87-year-old veteran, and the Capitol Police arrested 60 protesters, including this elderly gentleman who breached a barricade and peacefully protested the cuts to veterans' benefits. As we all know, that's going on. This gentleman, his name is John Spitzberg, and John was arrested during a veterans protest. As I roll the video behind over me here, you can see his arrest there. He was protesting Trump's military parade to mark the 250th anniversary of the United States Army on Friday in Washington, D.C. As you know, Trump, in his new beautiful bill, is wanting to cut billions from the Veterans Administration. And folks, that's just not right. It's not fair. And so he joined his other protesters. But as you can see, they put plastic cuffs on him behind his back, which was hurting him. And they weren't allowing him he needs a walker, and they were not allowing him to use his walker. And the cops actually were kind of, as you can see there, deciding what to do. So they just pushed the walker behind him. And it's sad that that this had to happen. Now, these protesters were peaceful. Other than knocking down the barricade, they didn't throw things at police officers like they did on January 6th. They just simply sat on the Capitol steps and held up their signs, and they all got arrested. So Pittsburgh reportedly, said that, I would do this protest again. He's a spritey old guy, and he wants to support his fellow veterans. And he said, I have no problem. He says, all I know is I had to be with my brothers and sisters who were being plummeted here. He said, that's all I know. And he actually does live in a retirement home. So he lives in Gainesville, and he got up to Washington, D.C., was visiting a reunion party for his army, that he was in, his platoon. And he said he was disappointed to see the police officers arresting the veterans at the Capitol. He said it kind of feels like a betrayal of the Americans and other people who serve this country for the purpose of keeping democracy and freedom. He said he hopes that people who see the video focus less on him and more on the message of the protest. Now, and I don't blame this guy. He is in my mind a true hero. I got to go back to this camera again just for a second so I can talk to you folks. What he did was probably more than you would see in anybody. When you got an 87-year-old man that's willing to join his brothers and sisters in protest, that's got to tell you something. And God bless him for that. And those police officers, I think, were a little too rough on a guy like that. It wasn't a young man, somebody that old, you got to give him a little benefit. To treat seniors like that, I don't care if they broke the law or not. He went through the barricade, and in his mind, he just wanted to be with his brothers and sisters. They could have gave him a little bit of benefit of the doubt because of his age. He's not going to hurt them. In fact, they probably hurt him more than he hurt them. So it's really sad. So I don't know where else to go with this, but it's disgusting. I guess that's all I can really say about it. It's disgusting. Moving on with other news, New York City's top financial officer, who's running to be its next mayor, was handcuffed and arrested by federal agents while guiding a defendant out of the immigration court on Tuesday. Again, as you can see by this video, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, agents detained Brad Lander, who is the city's comptroller, for assaulting law enforcement officers and impeding a federal officer. Now, Lander, as you know, is running for mayor, and the latest poll shows that he's not doing very good. He has less than 7% of the popular vote right now, but he is still running, and some people say this was a publicity stunt, which he says that is not true. It's absolutely not true. He was there to, make sure that anything going on with ICE was legal, and that they had warrants, and they didn't actually show him a warrant, but they waived an alleged warrant in front of him, but they wouldn't let him read it. And of course, as you can see by the video, he never insulted any officers. That's what these ICE agents, folks, they're basically bounty hunters. That's all they really are. When they're supposed to detain and arrest 3,000 people a day by orders, they're just going to go to anybody and everybody that they can find so they can meet quota. And that's sad that our country has come to this. The incident comes among an immigration crackdown under President Donald Trump, who has directed agents to conduct raids and deport immigrants who are in the United States illegally. 90% of them are not. 10% of them probably are. Videos of the incident show Lander leading a man through the hallway, as you saw there, and requesting that the agents show a judicial warrant for them. And as I saw by the video there, they waived some papers, but they weren't allowing him to read what was actually on there. And he was pretty upset, and I don't blame him. ICE officers are facing a 413% increase in assaults against them. That's what they're saying. It is wrong that politicians seeking higher office undermine law enforcement safety to get a viral moment. Notice that all these politicians that they're alleged saying are all Democrats. Trump does not like Democrats. He hates Democrats. And all the, if you notice, all these immigration arrests are going on in blue states, like New York City, like Los Angeles, and now he's moving to Chicago. These are all large cities run prominently by Democrats, and he's calling them sanctuary cities, whatever, and that's where he's going. And so, Tricia McLaughlin, who is the Homeland Security spokesperson, that's what she's saying. Everybody's breaking the law. What do you expect us to do? Nobody's above the law. We're going to take down anybody that gets in our way. We have our rights. Well, ICE agents don't have a lot of the rights that they think unless they have actual court warrants, and they will do whatever they got to do. In this particular recording that I'm doing, Dodger Stadium, they wouldn't let ICE agents in there. Notice how Dodger Stadium made a quick turnaround after the Hispanic lady sang the national anthem in Spanish, and the marketing lady said you got to sing English, and she didn't. There was a lot of backlash. Thousands of people boycotted the Dodgers game, and now they're kind of having a little turnaround. Oh, okay, maybe we were wrong. We're sorry. So there you go on that. It's crazy. As we wind down, let's bring it back to home for a little bit. And this gentleman, Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer. Uthmeyer is making headlines because he is proposing here in Florida a new facility to hold migrants in the Everglades. He wants to build a brand new prison dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, and he described it as having space for a temporary detention facility. And he is, this guy, I tell you, is absolutely out left field, kind of like his predecessor, Pam Bondi. So he wants to call it Alligator Alcatraz, and where he wants to put it is going to be at the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport in an abandoned airstrip near the Everglades, and they want to just convert that into a temporary detention facility. It would serve as a one-stop shop for detaining and processing legal cases and deporting migrants, designed to alleviate pressure on the county jails that have seen an increase in immigration arrests. Gee, I wonder why. The proposed facility could handle 1,000 people and be operational within 30 to 60 days if approved. Minimal investment. The Attorney General claims that the facility would require minimal investment due to its remote location. It's already run down. Let's just leave it that way as we put people in it. And it's surrounded by the Everglades, so nobody can get away. And broader plan, this would be a proposal. It's in part by Florida's broader immigration enforcement operations plan, intended to serve as a model for other states to carry out mass deportations. Overcrowding concerns. Some sheriffs in county Floridas have expressed concerns about their jails being overcrowding, so they're probably out in favor of this. We can get these illegal immigrants out of our cells and just ship them down there in the hot Florida sun to the Everglades. I don't even know if places even got air conditioning. He acknowledged this issue, stating his team was working with the federal government to address it. Trump is, he feels that Trump says that this is probably a good thing, and he doesn't have any problem with it, and maybe they can get it built and get some relief from the overcrowding in the county jails here in Florida and put them in down there in the Everglades. So the last thing I want to talk about is Ron DeSantis. He's been in the news here as well. Ron, as you know, is getting a lot of heat over this $10 million that he supposedly and allegedly, I use the word allegedly, put into his wife's nonprofit organization and then siphoned the money out of it for other things. The latest thing on this is that they had a fundraiser event for his wife's nonprofit, and they used some of that money to put up potential donors. They gave them alcohol, free booze, free hotel rooms, paid for transportation, fed them food, and they didn't have to put out a penny. And hopefully, they would donate to his wife's nonprofit. Now, what has happened here in the news with him is the fact that, and I've had this in my earlier podcast, he tried to introduce a bill that teenagers could work many, many long hours, with some with no break, and work overnight, whether they're in school or not, to help farmers out who are losing a lot of migrants because they don't have anybody to work in their fields. And same with restaurants. So you could put kids as young as 14 years old out there and get a job and work long hours, and they can fill in those holes. Well, Even though this is a big red state, some Republicans actually got a brain, and they never voted on that bill. The House passed it, but before the recess, the Senate just kind of walked away from it, and it never got any traction. So the bill, thank God, never became law. Can you imagine teenagers as young as 14 working 12-hour days with no 30-minute breaks, anything, just so that you can get production out of them? So, and the last thing I want to talk about is Juneteenth. As you know, Donald Trump put out a tweet on his Truth Social that he thought Juneteenth, he didn't mention it by name, but that we have another holiday that absolutely makes no sense. It closes down production and businesses, and, people aren't working, so we got to stop having all these holidays. He never once came out and had a public statement about Juneteenth. He probably doesn't even know what the hell is, why it's there. About the emancipation of our slaves and being freed. It was an event that happened in Texas, and that's the day that our, slavery was gone. You think Trump knows that? Probably not, because there were even pressers talking to his illustrious press secretary about it, and she didn't have any comment. She refused to even talk about it. She's trying to go to another reporter, and the reporter brought it back at the beginning. What does the president do about Juneteenth? Oh, he's working hard. As you know, it's great you're here on a holiday. We're all working 24/7 for you, the American people. She dodged the question. And to me, that is just freaking sad. And so, he says that he knows, he says, he even speaking for the American people, he says, all these people, they do want to go to work. They don't need another holiday. No. How do you know that, Mr. President? People like being home with their families and having a holiday. People do not want to work 80 hours a week. If they can get a nice federal holiday day off, they'd rather be home than in the office just because you think you work. And of course, he plays more golf than any other previous president. He's always at his golf course, So who is he to say about people wanting time off, So anyway, sadly, very little media coverage on Juneteenth. I did see some stuff on some of the networks, but again, it's sad that the White House wouldn't recognize the holiday, just like they didn't recognize this as, June is also LGBTQ month. We all celebrate Gay Pride during the month of June. And again, all these things, because of his little thing on diversity, equity, and inclusion that he's trying to get rid of, the anti-woke movement, you don't hear a damn thing about anything that has to do with minorities. It's all white privilege and nothing else. And so it's sad. Anyway, there is your news for this week on The Right Has Left. I'm Roy Garten. Look forward to your comments. And until next time, you try to have a good week. Take care.